work feels so overwhelming that I will wake up in the morning and write a to-do list from number 1 to 10. And I know I'm supposed to do all these things, but somehow I'm unable to do any of it. So I end up doing nothing, and then I beat myself up about doing nothing, and still I'm unable to get up and do something to stop myself from doing nothing and being anxious. And so by the time I get there, I know, okay, things are bad.
Yeah.
And it happens, I think, for me every 3 months. But now after actually sign up sessions, I think I can see a bit of change.
That's good.
Yeah, but it can be a bit crazy. So that's what I'm saying. When you speak, you're speaking to me. So now, first of all, I want us to talk a little bit about how to, just simple ways of putting down or coming up with systems that will work, especially for solopreneurs, people who it's a one-man show. You're everything. You're marketing and admin and sales and everything. And especially for service businesses, because, with products, it's sort of easy to figure out how, I mean, I bought it at this price, I need to sell it at this price, this is my profit, right? But with a service business, sometimes it's difficult to even figure out how to, price, how to even validate that I've charged you this much because A, B, C, D, But I want us to talk about that. But before we do, Danielle, what's your story?
My story?
Yeah.
How far back do you want me to go? Like, which part do you want to focus on?
Why Kenya?
Why Kenya? Okay, so that's a good question. I grew up in the U.S. You might be able to tell from my accent. Maybe not, because everyone has different accents from all over. But I grew up in the U.S. and I moved to London when I was 24, like fresh out of university, working for a corporate. And I shifted to London, and I was in London for 11 years. We can touch on that story if we want to. We don't have to. But I was in London for 11 years. And then in 2016, my life in London had come to a close. I had ended a relationship with my now ex-husband. I had already left the industry and started my own business. Like everything that I was doing in London had naturally kind of come to an end. Okay. And I knew I didn't want to stay in London any longer. In fact, I didn't want to be there even for the 11 years that I was there. It's like you get kind of in these situations where you're like, wow, 11 years has gone by. I can't imagine that time passes like this. Yeah. But anyway, long story short, I had the opportunity then to decide where next do I want to call home. I knew I didn't want to travel back. I knew I didn't want to live in the U.S. again, and I knew I didn't want to stay in the U.K., but I literally had no idea where do I go? And so in my mind, I decided I was just going to be a digital nomad for a while. I had built my business already in a way that allowed me to be location independent, because that was always a goal of mine from the beginning. Like, this is the type of business that I want to have. I want to be able to work from anywhere. Because even when I started it in 2012, I knew that London wasn't a long-term place for me. So I was like, I'll just be a digital nomad, this glamorous life of living out of a suitcase and traveling around the world and doing all these things. And, because I have a favorable passport, it's much easier for me to just rock up in any country and be like, okay, I'm going to stay here for a little while. Yeah. Let's not pretend that that's not the case, right? Yeah. That's for sure a privilege. So that was my intention. Now, before I even started on this digital nomad journey, though, I had already had a trip planned to Kenya. And the reason I had a trip planned to Kenya is because when I was in London, I was working with a woman. I had a client who was married to a Kenyan man. They were living in London at the time, but they knew that they were going to move back to Kenya to raise their children. So in between the time of us working together in 2016 happening, she had relocated. Okay. And so she had invited me down to Kenya to kind of just see what it was all about.